Welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Mindset. I am your host, Dale Crossar, and in today's episode, we're talking about why the calorie burn isn't the best strategy to aid you in your health and fitness goals. Most people chase calories to lose weight, to lose fat, but ultimately it's only going to lead you to burning out. Now, really quickly, before we get into the episode, I just need two quick favours from you. If you're new around here, every Monday and Thursday, you can expect an episode from myself. And if you are new around here and you enjoy today's episode, one of the best ways you can support us is by leaving a little 5-star rating on Spotify, or if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's video, and I'd love to hear if you've got any questions for myself. So without further ado, that's enough chit chat. Let's get into today's episode. Okay, so you might be someone who is so fixated in calories, and particularly what your watch says, what the treadmill in the gym says. Well, in today's episode, I want to maybe try and get through to you as to why that isn't the best approach. And I'm going to make this as simplified as I possibly can. And I'm not just going to leave you hanging. I'm going to help you transition that view onto where's best to put your energy. Now, no pun intended here, but the more you focus on how many calories you burn will lead to you reaching burn out. And I know that seems, you might be like, how's that going to happen? Well, let's get into as to why. Now, there's a couple of things to this conversation we need to sort of address. First of all, calories burned. How are we measuring the amount of calories burned? When I look at my watch, sometimes when I do my step class, it shows 300 calories. But when I do my high intensity body pump class, it's 900 calories. So am I best to do the body pump class or am I best to do the step class? Well, let's talk about smart devices for a sec, right? One of the best things that have ever happened to the fitness space, but equally one of the worst. This is a double-edged sword. This is a I can't get those words out. A double-edged sword, but equally a kind of catch-22 we need to consider. So, smartwatches, great for measuring your movement, great for measuring your heart, your cardio activities, from the sense of how long you've done, what your heart rate was sitting at, all these different things. But one thing that we massively overlook is how inaccurate these can be. Even if you brought it down to its fundamental core as to why they exist in the first place, it was an advancement on pedometers. Pedometers, is that the right word for them? But it was to track steps. That was essentially what happened. And then it became tracking sleep, tracking heart health, respiratory system, your HRV, all these different things, right? Even the steps can be inaccurate. If you are cleaning the house or doing other things with your wrists and your hands, then you will notice that your step count starts to increase. So it's not a true reflection of what's going on. Now, one of the biggest inaccuracies to our smart devices is our calorie burn, right? Now, there was a bunch of studies done in a meta-analysis that came to the conclusion that smartwatches were 23 to 89% inaccurate on the types of activities that they then measured, right? Now, this was back in 2018, and I'm a big believer that with technology getting better and better as time goes on, of course, the accuracy of that calorie burned is going to get better and better. Now, the way they measure calories burned is there's a movement sensor, there is a formula built in, it's looking at your heart rate, your height, your weight, all these different things. But it is bullshit. It is one of those things that it shouldn't even matter. It's like me standing next to you in a workout and you going, oh, that was a good workout. How many calories have I burned, Dale? 400. And you just going, okay. And getting on with your life and like, okay, I've burned 400 calories. So it is so irrelevant. And I'll go deeper into as to why this is something that will become irrelevant. And hopefully after today's episode, you are bought into this idea. But if not, then please reach out because I would love to help. I'd love to answer any questions you might have on this topic. Okay, so who's the types of people who end up falling into the calorie burn trap? Well, two types. One side, fat loss, weight loss, any type of transformation. We want to know, or the idea is being sold to that if I burn more calories than I consume, then I will see X result. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's to an extent absolutely true, but there's things to consider, right? And with that camp of people, we then look at the calories burned on a watch and it gives us this hype of, right, okay, I had my 1500 calories. Oh, I've burned 900. I'm definitely burning the rest. Like, in fact, I would make a guess that no one really thinks about the additional calories of where your body burns. And I'll come on to how our body breaks that down in a little sec, right? So that's one cap. The other side, which I have fallen into, is I want to see X amount of number calories burned so I can treat myself. There is absolutely, in fact, I'll hazard a guess and say there's maybe about 60, 70% of you guys watching this that you've fallen into that trap, like myself included. And I've got a funny story to tell you about my calorie burn experience, right? So anyway, if we know that's 20 to 80%, or 20, let's round it up to 90, 20 to 90% where that can be inaccurate, then let's take the fundamentals of a intense workout, right? For easy numbers, because I am not good with math. I know I might have tricked you in some of the previous episodes, but I done a good bit of research and a bit of practicing to make sure I nailed those numbers. But essentially, let's say we burn 1,000 calories, or a watch tells us we burn 1,000 calories. In reality, that could be as little as 300. Yeah, it might be close to 1,000, but 800 calories to 1,000 calories is a 200 calorie difference. And this makes up a massive error in terms of the reason why we're focusing on the calorie side of things. You get what I mean? So if you look at it and you're like, okay, I burned 1,000 calories, you go out for dinner, you go whatever it is, and you're like, right, I can have that thing. And then you start to wonder to yourself, why am I not seeing results? Like, I'd burned so many calories in the gym, and why is this telling me, or why is the fitness industry lying to me? Because I'm burning more than I'm consuming. Well, the grand scheme of things is you're not. There's another side little part to this conversation, that even the types of foods that you have aren't 100% precise, 100% accurate. They can be up to 20, 25% in some cases, highly inaccurate. And there's fantastic YouTube videos being done on this where different fitness influencers have worn various types of Apple Watches, and then at the same time done a science-based CO2 test. So essentially, the most accurate way to test how many calories you've burned is by measuring the oxidative part of our CO2, right? So when we breathe out, so that way you see them wearing the little CO2 masks. They've got all these kind of monitors strapped up to them, and you're getting a lab report off the back of this. Well, the interesting thing with this is there isn't the right answer to which smart device is better, because there's various videos on this on YouTube and it's so fascinating. So on one element, the person's walking fast and then runs, and Whoop seems to be the closest, but it's still like 300 calories off. Aura rings are down the bottom, but then the next test to do, Whoop is the furthest one away and the Aura rings closer, and there's just so many variables that come into play. Now, the story I want to tell you was back in my bodybuilding day, right? I wouldn't even call it bodybuilding day. I just got a coach and wanted to sign up for my first bodybuilding show. And with any bodybuilding coach, you're prescribed cardio. And I'm very much like you. I'm thinking, okay, the more cardio I do, the more shredded I'll get. Within reason, that is true. But anyway, that's besides the point. So my cardio was like 20 minutes, and then it was 30, 35, 40, 45, 1 hour, right? And I was sitting about the 45 mark, I'm sure. And the type of cardio I could do was up to me. It was the one I was going to be most consistent and that was 100% true at the time. We're talking 10 years ago, right? So I'm doing the treadmill, and I remember seeing, it's interesting, that's like 202 calories burned. And I never really understood this, right? I never really, to be honest, I didn't care to understand it at the time if I really think about it. But I vividly remember going, I'm going to do the Stairmaster today. And I'd done the Stairmaster, and I fucking struggled because it's one of those stairs at the end of the day. I wasn't adapted to that type of cardio. So I found that too tough. And then one day I was like, I'm going to do the cross trainer. So Jill went into her yoga session, and I done my 45 minutes on the cross trainer. Do you know that bitch told me I had done 1,200 freaking calories burned? And you should have seen the excitement on me. I was over the moon. I was like, this is going to get me absolutely peeled for my competition, because I'm burning more calories doing this activity. And this is where it gets so fucked up. The machines in the gym are designed to play into that insecurity, right? Whether they admit it or not, they are so inaccurate that it becomes, how do we keep you in the gym? Is it a good resistance? Is it a good machine? I mean, let's be honest, treadmills can vary from machine to machine, but at the end of the day, you're walking, same with a cross trainer. And I never really thought this at the time, but thinking back to it, the only way that's measuring calories is it doesn't know my weight, it doesn't know my experience, it doesn't know where my metabolism is at, how much muscle mass I've got, all these things that make up how many calories we burn on a day-to-day basis. It's measuring how fast am I going, how long am I going for, and what is the resistance that I'm doing, right? And the way I want to hit this point home is, let's say me and you listening to this, we both live our individual lives, right? I am sitting about 96 kilos just now. You might be sitting at 83, 52, 104, it doesn't matter, right? But both of us jump on this cross trainer. And let's say we go and we do 45 minutes and we keep the same speed, the same resistance, and we come off that. Well, that's going to tell us we've both burned the same amount of calories, but it's so far from the truth. It is utter bullshit, right? They are also off by like 80% and above, but that's not necessarily the point here. It's the fact that again would be like me standing next to you and going, okay, you burned 900 calories today, and you're just going, okay, and then moving on. It's weird how we just give these machines and devices so much power and we just trust it. We trust it open-heartedly because it's like, oh, it's fitness. Like, they're not going to lie to us. Well, unfortunately, they do. And I don't think it's that they're lying to us. In fact, I think it's so freaking hard to measure. And this is the whole conversation that we need to get more aware of. We're so individualized that our approach to what we do to lose fat, to lose weight, to get healthier, to get fitter, to get stronger, fundamentals remain the same, but the approach is so individualized. So many studies done on, or so many like documentaries and things followed where two twins, like biologically identical twins, and they go through life, they have different interactions, different experiences with food, different sleep cycles, different muscle built, fat gained, all these different things that then makes up their nutritional fingerprint or their metabolism. I don't know what word I'm trying to say here. Essentially, their metabolism functioning in a different way to someone that they have the same DNA as, just like you and your friend and your work colleagues or your partner or your kids, your mum, like whatever it is, everyone's so different. And this is why diets, the diets that get more popular is the ones that are easy to follow. And the same goes for workouts, right? So you look at your watch and you're like, wow, I burned so many calories here. That's the workout I'm going to do because you're bought into that idea. And if I bring it back to this cross trainer example, I kicked myself laughing, but do you know what it actually made me do? It made me overeat. So I had a diet plan. I was sticking to that diet plan. I was very meticulous about what I was doing. I mean, after all, I was doing one of the most extreme body compositions that you can do, and that is a bodybuilding show. Everything's so fixated on my looks. I had this plan. I'm following it. And do you know, when I seen that higher number, do you know what it said to me? There was a part of me that was like, I was going to get shredded. But then I start thinking to myself, I'm a wee bit hungry. Maybe I could, what could I do here? You know what? I'm going to have a wee Galaxy. I'm going to have a wee chocolate bar. I mean, it's only a couple hundred calories, so I burned more than what I burned in the treadmill. And I start playing with fire, essentially. And then I wonder why the conditioning side of things got so harder to maintain and harder to dial down. And there's a whole other part of that conversation where how restrict my calories got. It's a story for a later day. But ultimately, it'll mess with your brain. It genuinely does. And that's why I'm saying they're the two camps. Now, you might fall into another camp, and I'm all ears to hear where you find yourself. A lot of you guys might have the goal going both ways, where you want to lose a certain amount of weight, but you also want to increase the amount of calories that you're eating, or you want to increase the calories burned so you can eat a little bit more and reward yourself. Like, it's such a backwards way of looking at it. But essentially, the calories burned on these devices are not accurate, right? So let's go on to why, if they're not accurate, surely burning more calories and having that as the focus is the better pursuit to achieve either one of these goals. Okay, so let's really break down how our body burns calories first of all. And I know this might be, well, it shouldn't actually be boring, because if you're truly interested in your health and fitness, this hopefully will make sense. And I'm going to keep referring to analogy of driving, right? Driving's one of the easiest analogies I've came up with recently, and I'm just going to go with it, right? I came up with an analogy the other day about Pac-Man, but that's a hard one to communicate through podcasting. You guys who work with me one-to-one, you'll be laughing just now because you'll be like, that makes sense. It was a good analogy, but it's fucking random. Sometimes just something comes into my brain, I'm like, that's a good idea. Right, so energy, right? Energy, calories, it means the same thing, okay? Now, what do you think about when it comes to calories? You think about, I gain fat, I lose fat. However, there's other things that happen when we put energy into our bodies. I keep hitting this mic. When we feed ourselves, when we put fuel into us, we've got our biological sort of processes like our genetics and our hormones. The less fuel we have, or if we keep over-fueling that, then those things can be affected. Or that then affects our skin, our hair, our nails, our just everything really, right? But essentially how your body breaks down energy, it breaks it down into ultimately 3 parts, but it's 4 overall, right? Now the first one, your body will use energy when we move, okay? Voice went a wee bit crackly there. When you move, that seems like an obvious one, right? So for me to talk just now, for me to blink, for me to get animated with my hands, your body's burning calories. Your body needs calories to make that movements, to push out and all that sort of stuff. That's why, funnily enough, you see guys with ADHD where they're moving their legs and they're fidgety, like those fidgeters. That's why you'll probably find that 9 times out of 10, they get away with a little bit more of just this hyperactive state where they fall into the skinny, not the skinny, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? The hard gainers, where their struggles is when they try and gain weight, they really struggle with it. So that category, the exercise component, the movement component is referred to as NEAT. Now, I actually don't see too many people talk about this anymore. I think the James Smith and Darren, what's his second name? I better get this right. Is it Cattell? Darren, let me see. Cartel. You know me when it comes to names. Darren Cartal, right? That's what we'll go with. But those guys were, it's really, I don't know if it's what made them famous, but it's one of the first instances when I'm on social media, I seen them talk about, I think it was Neat Up or Neat Up 24/7. But Neat became this thing of getting your steps up, get moving, because as you move, your body's going to be burning fuel. As I'm talking and as I'm podcasting to you, my body's burning fuel. Same with the types of jobs that we have. It's no coincidence that as jobs have got more desk-based and home-based, that we've seen this rise of weight gain. It just makes sense. We're not walking to the office or walking about the office, going out for lunch, walking to the car park and back. But anyway, this is probably about 15% of your total calories burned, right? So in this example, we're going to say that I am a person that's consuming 2,000 calories, okay? So 15% of that, which is 300 calories. Look at me. I hope I get these right, because it'll be fucking awkward if I don't. But about 300 calories is made up from my day-to-day movement. So this isn't me changing anything. This is just what I've been doing, right? Forget fat loss, forget calories burned and all this sort of stuff. It's just for me to maintain the same lifestyle, or it's referred to as homeostasis, which is ultimately my body doesn't gain weight, it doesn't lose weight, it just functions as it's been functioning. 15% of my calories is made up of that movement. And that's what I do every single day. Walk to, walk back, whatever the average is, okay? So then you think to yourself, right, if that's only 15% of your day, maybe it's the exercises, maybe it's the workouts that make up a bit larger chunk. Nope. About 10, I mean, these can vary anywhere 5% either way, right? So just bear that in mind. But around 10% of your day comes from exercise activity, right? And this is referred to as exercise activity, the thermogenesis, or EAT, right? And this is your calories burned. So your calories burned falls into this category. Now I'm going to talk through how your body adapts to this in a sec, but I just want you to understand the different mechanisms that work within our body, okay? So again, that's what, about 200 calories. Now, albeit high intense workouts and cardio driven workouts initially will burn a higher amount. But remember what I said, this is homeostasis, right? Homeostasis is not gaining weight, not losing weight. It's for your body to operate and function, to be able to just tick and not feel like we're overstretching, we're overworking, okay? So putting that to the side just now, around 10% of that is made up to our exercise activity. And then the last two is we got another 10%. It actually falls more from like 5 to 12%, but just for easy numbers, is the thermic effect of food. Because believe it or not, your body, when you're eating food, you're obviously moving and that sort of stuff, but it's the digestion and the chemical processes that kick off through eating calories, through eating carbs, fats, proteins, all these sort of things, drinking water, your body to process that down through your esophagus and into your stomach and all that sort of things, your digestion to kick into play. There is energy that's required. Just like when you turn the car on, you need fuel to charge the battery, or you need fuel to power the battery on. You need fuel to get all the mechanics of these things working. Actually, a better analogy is probably if you look at the energy on electric cars. So you turn the car on, to turn the light on in the interior, that needs energy. To turn the radio on, that needs energy. These are all things that are required within your body as well. So the digestion process, that needs energy. So again, that's about 200 calories throughout the day through the amount of food that you have. Then the last one is the biggest piece of the pie. So as a reminder, 15% is for just day-to-day movement, sitting up, sitting down, walking, so on and so forth. Exercising is about 10%, and then another 10% is the thermic effect of food. That gives us a total of 35%. So the remaining 65% is our basal metabolic rate, and this is where you think about your metabolism, your body's efficiency in terms of how much of that's burned. So with 65%, that is 65. That's about 1,300 calories of my 2,000 calorie, I was going to say allowance there, but my 2,000 calorie consumption is burned in this BMR state. What's the BMR state, Dale? Well, your BMR is everything that falls into play, from your heart beating, your organs to work, your nutrients to filter through everything, the water to flow through your body, just every single thing that you can think of. And when we break this down, this is the category that you're like, okay, I can't make my organs beat, or no, sorry, I can't make my organs work faster. I can't make the nutrients go better. So what can be done in that sense? Well, this is where having more muscle mass makes a big improvement, right? Now, muscle mass is, I don't want to kind of put any numbers to this. I'll put variations of numbers, but again, every person's going to be a little bit different. So one thing I used to say to clients before they'd signed up to us was, imagine version 1 and version 2 of me, okay? So in this example, we said 65% of my BMR equates to about 1,300 calories of my calorie burn, right? Because we're having 2,000 calories, and the breakdown of how my body burns those 2,000 calories, 10% goes to the food that I eat, 10% goes to the exercise that I'm doing, 15% goes to the movement that I'm doing, and the further 65% goes to the just my body to work, right? So let's say version 1 and version 2 of me sit on the couch, have the exact same day for the whole day, okay? Version 2 and version 1, the only difference is that version 2 has slightly more muscle mass. And in this case, let's say 5 to 10 pounds of more muscle mass. That's not slightly, that's pretty dramatic, okay? Version 2 will be burning more calories than version 1 because the muscle density and the muscle mass that's on that individual requires more calories, and that's where you see your body speeding up its metabolism because it's more of an expensive tissue. Now, you can't build more muscle with few calories. To build muscle, we need more calories. We need to be in that surplus. And if you listen to the reverse diet, that's why this conversation will make a little bit more sense now. If you haven't listened to the reverse diet episode, highly recommend go back and listen to that, because this is how you increase the biggest percentile in that pie chart. Now, you going after a smaller percent, like the exercise activity, it's like you've got a hole in your arm and you're like, okay, I'll put a plaster over it and I'll just start bandaging it up and I'll clean the wound and all this sort of stuff, rather than fixing the root cause and filling the hole. Do you get what I mean? So yes, you can make differences by burning a little bit more calories initially. The biggest difference it's going to make to your overall fat loss and your weight loss journey is going to be the amount of muscle mass that you gain. Okay, so let's back up a little sec and let me hit this home with a couple more points. So let's say you hear everything that I say. Okay, yeah, the 65, but you know what, Dale? Like, I don't want to build muscle. I just want to get rid of this fat, right? So I'm going to just increase the amount of activity that I'm doing. Okay, I know it's only 10%, but I know if I can keep pushing harder, I can increase that 10% and get away with a little bit more. And you're absolutely right. So this is what happens to everyone. So analogy, let's say I want to achieve, 10 kilos of weight loss, right? In reality, it's probably fat loss most people are looking for. But this is how people put together their strategy for their fat loss plan. So it's not about fat loss. It's just I'm going to measure this by weighing myself in the scales. And the goal is to get 10 kilos lighter, right? Analogy, let's say that goal, before we even set that goal, to do that, you've made the decision that you're going to stick to a more restrictive calorie plan, right? Which means you don't fluctuate too much. You're just sticking to 2,000 calories. Let's use the same example that I just used. And you know that 10% your day before, it was about 200 calories you were burning. So you're going to get your Apple Watch or your Garmin, whatever it is, and you're going to focus on the calorie burn, okay? By focusing on the calorie burn, you're pushing that 10% bracket up a little bit higher. And your body absolutely, because you're burning more, initially you are burning more, your body's like, oh shit, right. Okay, right, we need to, where else do we steal this energy from? It utilises it from the fat stores on our body and the other areas, okay? Now, analogy, let's say this process is the likes of you driving from Glasgow to London. But the fuel that you're putting in your body, you've got enough fuel to get you to London, but it's like you driving with the foot down in fifth gear. Your body, your engine's roaring harder, your body's using more. If in the example where you're using an electric car, it's like you having all the lights on and all the operating systems going. Your body only has, or your car can only reach to Birmingham, right? And when you get to Birmingham, you're like, shit, we've got a long way to go. How do we get from Birmingham to London when we've ran out of fuel at this point? Well, that's where it's like using the backup generator or the backup fuel system. It switches over and it utilises that backup system to get you to London. And that's what your body does with the fat initially. That's why the first body pump class you done, that's why the first CrossFit high intensity class that you done, that's why that worked initially. You were like, oh man, that was so fucking hard. I'm sweating buckets. Oh, my watch has told me I burned 900 calories. Jump in the scales later that week and you're like, yes, first win, I have lost 1 kilo of weight or whatever it is, right? So let's repeat that process. We're now in London. We need to drive back up to Glasgow. We consume the same amount of fuel. That fuel gets us to Birmingham because guess what? We're fucking, the foot is down to the floor and we're hitting 100 miles an hour and we've burned through that fuel quicker. So because we burn through the fuel quicker, we only get to Birmingham. Backup generator kicks in. We use the additional fuel storage. It comes from our fat in our body and that gets us through to the destination of Glasgow. Sounds great, doesn't it? This is how your body's breaking down this process. However, there is a catch. Next day, we're driving back to London, same process. Usually about 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks. Everyone's different on this stage. But if you are someone that's chronically done this over the last couple of years, this is the problem you run into. You get in the car, you start the engine, you're like, okay, back to London. Foot goes down, except your body adapts, right? Remember what I said maybe like 10 minutes ago? Homeostasis, right? Our body always needs to operate in homeostasis because if it doesn't, ultimately it leads to other things breaking down. You're just death. Like ultimately your body crashing, going into this hyper state of stress and breakdown and all these different things, right? So homeostasis is now adapted. So those 900 calories that were being additionally burnt is now your body's expecting to do that. So your body gets efficient with the original calories that it does. And the way that it does that is you try to put the foot down and drive at 100 miles an hour, which means you are burning through the gas quicker. You put the foot down and you're like, I can only go 80 miles an hour now. And you think to yourself, how am I only going, I used to be able to go 100, but I can only go 80. Doesn't matter, like I'm going to push through it. And your body can only get to wherever it gets to destination wise, switches over to the backup generator, utilises fat storage, rinse, repeat, okay? We then get to the stage where your body's so fully accustomed and adapted to the amount of calories that you're burning or the additional calories that you're burning, and it's went to homeostasis. You're doing this crazy high intensity, hard fucking workout 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 times a week, and it's burning you out. You jump in the car, you turn the car on, you put the foot down, and this time you can only drive 40 miles an hour. So one, it takes you longer to get to your destination. Things are starting to slow down. You're tired, you're exhausted. It's just this longer process. Other things start to happen. And that's how your body gets efficient with cardio. That's how your body gets efficient with the calorie burn. Now, the only way you get into the calorie burn is HIIT classes, step, legs, bums and tums. I would even bracket the high intensity CrossFit in this example, albeit there's maybe a little bit more longevity that happens because you are using weights. But if you're doing reps for time and it's about how hard you can push in that session to get that calorie burn up, it doesn't matter what you're doing. That's your body in that high intensity state. And the way that it will adapt to it is by getting used to doing that, right? So calories burned doesn't necessarily mean body fat loss or body fat. I was going to say gains there, like your body burning body fat. You might think, why? Like, what is some additional things that start to happen if it's all about the calorie burn? Your sleep's then affected. The way that your body's adapting, it needs to rob energy from other processes that were working. So your immune system gets a hit. This is why so many people get so ill. And you think, what's happened? Oh, you've been smashing the workouts. There's a reason you've got ill. It's because your immune system has to down-regulate, doesn't have the energy to pull into those stores. For women, reproductive systems, your period. So many women in the bodybuilding space lose their period because of this exact thing. The destination we're trying to drive from Glasgow to London, but the destination, we only have enough fuel to get us to Birmingham, so it's going to be like, right, what else can we do? So we start turning the things of all the other things that's not as important. Because guess what's most important? That heart needs to beat, the lungs need to function, the organs need to operate. You can understand why more calories burned and less calories consumed, being on that path for too long will lead you to little to no success and lead you to a darker part of your health and fitness goals. So the interesting one, I think it shows here, like studies have shown that the caloric expenditure can decrease by as much as 25% as time goes on. So that's where you hit this plateau. Plateau is something that's kind of thrown about in the fitness space just now, but it makes sense in this scenario, doesn't it? You doing that drive every single day, yes, you might be motivated, you might be committed to staying on this path, but how do you reverse out that? And here's the kicker with us, right? Your body's efficient, burning all those calories. You then decide, can't be arsed going to the gym this week. And then that 1 week turns into 2 weeks, it turns into 3. Your body starts gaining weight rapidly on 2,000 calories, right? You've not changed anything else. All you've done is you've said, I'm not going to be doing this high intensity workout, and it's expecting that workout to happen. So what's happening? There's an overspillage of calories. In that 2,000 calories, you now gain weight on the 2,000 calories, even though that was your homeostasis before, because now your homeostasis is trying to balance, it's gaining those fat stores back. And this is the problem with chasing the calorie goal. And kind of one last point I was saying on the resting part, the BMR part, that's the largest part of the pie of the biggest dent you can make to your calorie side of things. So you're operating your exercise activity, and look, don't get me wrong, that might be 10% for most people. In all honesty, you can get that shifting up to 20, sometimes even 30%, but it will never last that long because that leads you to a quicker burnout. As I said at the start, focusing on the calorie burn will lead to the calorie burnout. And the biggest difference to that pie, the way that the balance of homeostasis and just straight up survival, the adaptation of your body. Remember I was saying the BMR, the big piece of the pie, the 65%, that can be increased so that version 1, version 2 of you, if there's more muscle mass, that piece of the pie increases more. So the example was 1,300 calories are initially burned, but if you build more muscle and you have more muscle, then your body will have the ability to metabolize more calories. So that 65% means it becomes not 1,300 calories, but maybe even 1,400, 1,500 calories, depending on how much muscle mass you've consumed. Well, the same goes for the opposite way. If you're just constantly burning calories, you're reducing the need to have that expensive tissue because you're not feeding yourself enough food to maintain the muscle. You're not doing certain types of activity to maintain the muscle. So what happens in that version? Version 1, version 2 of you. This time, version 2 of you have the exact same day. You're sitting on the couch, but version 2 of you is lost 10 pounds of muscle, or whatever example that I used there. Well, the calorie goal, or the calorie burn and metabolism in that sense, isn't 1,200 anymore. It's probably more likely 1,000, and those 200 calories make a big difference. Okay, so there's one more kind of point I want to bring up on kind of hitting this home in terms of the calorie burn, and that was one of the most recent studies that's been done on the Hadza tribe. This is a modern day hunter-gatherer group in Tanzania, and in other words, basically these guys live how we used to in ancient times. They go out, they hunt their own food, and they walk for miles and miles, day to day, and collect and gather whatever it is they're getting, right? So essentially a team of researchers followed this tribe, right? And they wanted to understand how many calories these guys burn, because they are so freaking active every single day, all right? But when you look at them, they're not exactly overweight, or if anything, they probably fall more on the skinnier side of things. Now, you might think to yourself, well, that might be the lack of food that they're having. So this team of researchers wanted to understand how many calories they were burning and consuming, right? And here's the interesting part. So the calories burned was similar to Westerners, and they're obviously referring to the average American. So despite having a very active lifestyle involving hunting, gathering, the Hadza daily energy expenditure was about the same as Westerners, averaging in men anywhere from 2,500 calories to 2,900, and for women 1,900 calories to 2,300. Right, so straight away you think, oh, it's quite a lot of food, considering what the guys are doing. Now here's the part that will make it more apparent on the calorie burn side of things. More importantly, the Hadza tribe were walking miles on end on day to day to find food. Men were averaging between 9 miles as women were averaging between 5 miles every single day, yet their total calorie burn isn't drastically higher than that of the sedentary individual in Western societies. So again, when we look at the cardio side of things, ultimately what it's saying is you can have an American man and woman sitting on the couch watching Netflix, going to their day-to-day job, and they will burn the same amount of calories as someone that has to walk and gather and hunt their own food in this different part of the world, right? So two different lifestyles, two different, completely different people with two of more or less the same activity levels output. And this highlights the point again that yes, there's other factors when it comes to obesity and all these different things, but when the fundamentals break down to the amount of calories burned in this situation, the calorie burned is the same. So whether you sit on the couch and watch TV and go to work where you're stuck behind a laptop, the activity levels of hammering out cardio or high intensity movements, yes, you see initial tip of the scales where one is burning more calories than the other, but homeostasis, the adaptation process, corrects that, and it will correct it fairly quickly. If you are focused purely on this high physical activity to drive the calorie burn for weight loss or fat loss, it's going to be a little bit more complex than just burning more calories, because your body will fight against that initiation and it'll adapt to it by getting better at it, and by getting better at it, you're then stuck in a bit of a predicament. So now on to the part of the episode that's going to answer your question. What on earth do you do if you shouldn't focus on the calorie burn? You're bought into the idea, okay Dale, I'm not going to focus on the calorie burn, but I still got these goals. What do I do? Well, got a couple of points, right? So you got maybe we'll run through 6-7 quick fire points. There's one thing that is the cornerstone that underpins everything that we do, and when we look back to the pie chart, the biggest difference it's going to make is by increasing our muscle mass. How do we do that? We need to do that by, well, two things: by slightly increasing the amount of calories that we consume, not by much. The best episode to listen to is the reverse diet, where I went into extreme depths on how you would do that. But essentially, you just want to be a couple hundred calories more than where you think your homeostasis or your calorie maintenance is at. And make sure there's a loud muscle building signal by following an extremely effective workout program. I do this with all my clients. I've got various workout programs that I've created for people in the past. If it's something you're interested in, check the link below. You can reach out to us and I can maybe build one for you. I also created a free one back when me and James were doing the podcast together. This was something that we had put together because we felt there's maybe a bit of a structure for it. I'm going to revamp that though. So maybe you've downloaded that in the past, but that will be coming soon. But the essential fundamentals are compound lifts, a couple of exercises per body part, and 2 to 3 times per week. It's not much, right? And you might be thinking, how on earth am I going to see results of that? So this whole process, yes, it's a longer path to take, okay? So we increase the calories a little bit, make sure there's a loud muscle building signal and strength signal by following an effective program. The next thing is the movement side of things. We want a kind of moderate movement on a day-to-day basis. Now here's where I'll maybe be a wee bit contradictory on what I said. You might be following some of these classes because you enjoy doing them, then by all means, like, keep them up then. If you can do them a couple of times a week for the rest of your life, then keep committed to them. Now, if you're doing them as a means to lose more fat, that's where I'd maybe bank a few of them, right? Kick it, like, park a few of them, do 1, maybe 2 because you like the atmosphere and the friendly thing that you do, but put your energy and focus into steps, daily movement, and focusing on the strength side of things. The other thing has to be the quality of the nutrition that you're having. So within the calories that you've got, you want to make sure you're having roughly about 2 grams of protein per 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. Now, if you would consider yourself obese or morbidly obese, maybe think about your ideal weight and try and hit that 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. And yeah, that's really what the most fundamental things that you can do. That is the best way approach. So circling way back to why I've done this episode in the first place, you look at a workout and one workout burns 900 calories, but a traditional strength training, resistance training workout is probably about 200, if you're lucky, 200, 300, right? Now, on the front of it, which one looks like it's the right thing to do? Well, it's the higher calorie burn. But now we know that leads you to a path of burnout. Focusing on the strength training workouts is where the gold lies, right? You want to do that majority of your week, 2, 3 times a week. The additional things, you can add in a bit of running, a bit of cycling, high intensity workouts, but only if you do them because you enjoy them, right? These things are contradicting signals to what your goal is, and your goal is to build muscle initially. And when I say build muscle, for the girls listening, this doesn't mean you're going to be fucking henched bodybuilder, right? This just means stronger quality of life. And with a stronger quality of life, it's going to make it easier to go into your diet phase. It's going to make it easier to go into your fat loss phase. And that's what we need to do. We need to cycle through different phases of our training, of our nutrition, and ultimately that's going to lead us to making better choices, having a more quality and fulfilled life with our health and fitness. Probably one of the longest episodes we've done in a while. I hope I've given you some food for thought. Boom, boom, boom. Another pun, eh? I need to get a wee button that I press when I do this. But ultimately, the calorie burn is not the one, right? I know you're being led to think that, and this is why I do this podcast. It's why I do what I do, because everything in this fitness space has been so counterintuitive and so contradictory. But the reason it's contradictory because it will work for some people and it won't work for others. And you have your own individualized approach to things, but ultimately you don't have an issue losing weight. You don't have an issue doing the high calorie workouts. You have an issue maintaining and sustaining, right? So that's why we want to make sure we retain as much skeletal muscle mass as possible. So still a wee bit bunged up with the cold. Didn't manage too many sniffles throughout it. So thank you for tuning into today's episode. I'll be back on Thursday with another episode. Every Monday and Thursday, 6 a.m, you can expect an episode from me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day or whatever you're getting up to. Any questions, make sure you're following me on Instagram at Coach Crossar. DM me, reach out to me, and follow the podcast page at bulletproof mindset __. And until next time, have a good one.